This is the project that I posted last week, the cherry end table. And if you want to build this project, I'll have a link to the plans and the project video in the description below. I finished this table with a little bit of a different type of finish, at least for me, and that's the LED hard wax oil by Vesting. I became familiar with this product from my friends over at Greene Street Joinery. I reached out to Vesting and they were kind enough to let me borrow this light and give me this finish. They're not paying me anything. I did put paid promotion in the description because I'm not going to be able to return the finish. But I just wanted to kind of tell you about this finish because I think it's a game changer, really. So this gun, or this light, is $995. This can of finish here is $165. That probably sounds expensive to most people, but I think if you look at it in the context of finishing, then it probably starts to make sense. So if you're spraying lacquer, you have to think of your spray equipment. That's your turbine, your spray gun, your spray booth. And if you're using a tung oil finish, well, then you have to think about your time and the labor that goes into it. If you're using a tung oil finish, your shop is basically off limits for making sawdust for a few days. With this, you put a coat of finish on it, hit it with the light, and you're good to go. Literally, you can hit this with the light, and I can start making rips on the table saw. So that's a bit of a game changer, at least in my book. So let's talk about applying the finish. You're only going to sand your project down to 120. You don't want to close the grain, so you don't want to sand any higher than 120. When you apply the finish, you'll apply it in a circular motion, which is a little counterintuitive to what I've always been taught. I was always sort of a go with the grain kind of guy. But you apply it in a circular motion and you really work the finish into the wood. When it comes to tight spots like this, where the apron meets the leg here, or this bead molding, what worked for me is applying the finish with a brush, really working it in there, and to remove the finish, I would use a new brush, a dry brush, and get into those tight spots and then dab it on a paper towel to remove the finish from the brush and go back at it. What you don't want to do is have puddles of finish in any of your details, because once you hit it with the light, it's going to be rock hard. So you'll apply one coat of finish, sand it with 320 sandpaper, apply a second coat, and now the manufacturer suggests only 2 coats, but I like 3, and I was talking to Jeff and Rob at Greene Street Joinery, and they go with 3 also. So after the second coat, then another light sanding, a third coat, and you're done. When it comes to sort of small areas like this, using the Scotch-Brite pad is fine. Working on the top, it's a bit of a workout. I mean, your fingers are sore because that's just a lot of area to cover, and you really are working the finish into the wood. So I called Jeff. They happen to be finishing a banquette, which is about 30 inches deep and I think 7 feet long, at least the one section. And they're applying the finish with orbital sanders. So I thought that we'd take a ride over there and then we'll come back here and I'll try to apply some of that knowledge to finishing the top to this table.
This is everything that we use to apply the finish, the Vesting hard wax oil. Today we're using the gray, 2 coats of gray and 1 coat of pure. We've switched over for anything that is, big enough. It gets a little awkward with small edges and stuff. We switched over to these Bosch sanders. So we use one with the white pad. We just found these on Amazon. It's a hook and loop back, like a white Scotch-Brite. So we use one of these to apply the finish, and then we use another one to do our scuffing. And we found with the orbital we can get away with using 240. When we're doing it by hand, we use 400. I think they recommend 320. We don't happen to keep 320 in-house, so we use 400. But we found with the orbital we can actually use this 240 by Mirka. We use a simple popsicle stick to apply the finish to the pad. We apply it to the piece, and then we wipe it clean, hit it with the light, and then we can scuff between coats. So it's pretty simple, it's pretty fast. Saves your hand versus we really have to work it into the grain. So It you know, it's hard on your fingers and your hands and your forearm. We do a lot of big pieces. John saw over here these giant cabinets that we have, so we needed to figure out a way that we could do this quickly. So these are, so they're 12 volt brushless. We already use the 12 volt Bosch drills and drivers in the shop, so it was a simple choice for us. These were on sale for $99 with a battery and a charger, which is like next to nothing when it comes to, you know, a sander. So we grabbed one initially, and then it was working so well we went and grabbed another. We got these at Lowe's. You know, we wouldn't buy these to use as sanders necessarily. I have grabbed this before and used it, you know, in an awkward spot because there's no cord, but they're working well for applying finish. I wouldn't switch over to these from our Festool sanders, but
They look like they're nice and light.
yeah, they're brushless, they're quiet. You know, they have a pretty long run time. They have that brake, so they stop really fast. So they're good sanders. I know a bunch of guys who recommended them, so we're ready to start applying finish here to these big flat portions of the banquette. So we're going to be using the sander as like sort of a buffer. So literally just take it and drizzle some on there. You need to get the pad, you know, a little saturated to get going. The wood is going to take all the finish that it can. So even if I get a spot on here,
You're going to be finishing it anyway.
right,
Okay.
it's gonna blend in. So start off with maybe about that much. The first coat, I'm not really worried about the finish. I'm worried about getting it all saturated. As you progress through the coats, you want to do a lighter and lighter coat because you have to wipe it off and you have to get it flat and smooth. So the first coat's really about just getting this all coated and soaked into the wood.
I want to let you guys know that Greene Street Joinery is a brand ambassador for Vesting Finishes. So if you're going to make a purchase, use the American Craftsman coupon code and that will save you 10%. And don't forget to follow Greene Street Joinery on Instagram to see this and other really high quality pieces of furniture finished and installed. I'll have the links in the description below.
You can see, you know, I have a lot of finish sitting back here, so what I do is I'll sort of come back into that area to get the pad to pick up some more finish. I'm getting to the point now I can tell that, you know, it's going too slow, so I'll go back and put more finish on the pad. We have what looks like, you know, a complete finish on the top. Everything kind of looks saturated, but what I found is the key really to getting a good finish is to look at all this in a raking light. And I don't know if John's gonna be able to pick it up on the camera, but we have areas like this that look a little bit dry. And you know, if you go ahead and hit this with the light and cure it and sand it and go through your coats, this area is gonna have a different finish. So you really need to get one consistent coat. So what I'll do is I'll apply a little more finish to the pad and keep looking at this at a raking light and make sure that everything is saturated. After we get it all applied and we check and make sure there's no dry spots, now the next step is to wipe it dry is really the key, is to get it to feel dry. You'll be able to feel when it starts to get dry because there'll be less resistance. You know, when it's wet you can feel some drag. Then when it's dry it feels smoother. And I do the same thing where I'll look at it at a raking light and make sure everything looks consistent. So I'm gonna go to a fresh towel now. And the nice thing is we could hit this with the light and just throw it away in the regular garbage, and there's no risk of this, you know, spontaneously combusting. Because this is a oil finish, like a penetrative oil finish. In reality, it's like you don't want any finish sitting on the surface. It's supposed to get in there, so you really want to wipe it until it's all gone. Anything that's left on the top will cure and harden with the light, so you'll end up with a bump. This is all wiped off clean now, nice and dry and consistent. So the next step is to cure it with the light. What I like to do is sort of it's almost like painting with like a spray gun. I start you know, and hit all the edges first so that I'm getting anything that went over the side. And what I actually like to do is, before we finish this face, I'll actually give that another sand. That way we knock off anything that sort of built up on the edge there. And now I just go over top. Not, you know, too fast or too slow. Just make sure that you're hitting every square inch. So now that's fully cured. If this was the last coat, we could start stacking and packing finished parts.
So now you're going to sand.
Right. So since we have this big surface, we'll use the sander with this 240. What I look for is a really consistent white finish on the wood. So when you start to scuff it, it'll turn white, sort of like a lacquer or something like that.
Sure, it powders up.
Right, it powders up really nice, which if you do finishing, you know that's like a sign of a good finish. So I'll look for a really consistent white look to it. Then we'll blow it off with compressed air, and we can hit it again with, you know, progressively lighter coats, because it won't be able to take as much finish. So this may be enough to put a second coat on this without even adding any more finish to the pad. It's definitely enough for a third coat. So that's what we're looking for with the scuff. You know, you could go back and feel anywhere where you see something that looks a little off. If it feels smooth, that's really all that matters. Because whatever's on this first coat's going to telegraph through the coats. You can see, you know, how nicely it powders up. So we can blow it off and then put on the second coat. This is all blown off. You can see there's still a little bit of dust. I found that you don't have to go super crazy. You just want to get it really out of the grain. This will melt together like a lacquer, anything like that, a varnish. So we'll see how it goes without adding anything. Again, now it's all scuffed and white. We want to get it back to that consistent, saturated look. So we'll add more finish as we go if we need to. So that's what we want. This is what it looks like now, and that's what we want. This is the same thing we had in the beginning. If you look at this straight down, it looks good, but if you get a raking eye on it, I can see that this is a little bit dry. I should say, I always put the sander down before I start it, because otherwise you're going to sling the finish everywhere. Kind of the way we see it after doing this, you know, I don't know how many hundreds of square feet we finished now, but the first coat goes on, and then the second coat really is about knocking down the raised grain, because it does pop the grain a little bit. So that scuff knocks it down flat. And then this is kind of like a touch-up coat. We're hitting any spots that either got sanded through on the scuff because it raised the grain so much, or we missed on the first coat. Then the third coat's really about getting like a glass smooth surface. Now it's time, wipe again and hit it with the light. So just about done wiping this. See, this is kind of where you want to be, where you're not picking up any more finish. You progressed from here, you know, well, progress from something like this, you know, to a little bit less, to even less. So now that it's all wiped, we can cure it with the light, and that'll be the last of the gray. We'll do one final top coat of the pure. Back to the light. So we'll just same thing, hit the edges first, and then get a nice pass over the whole top. Just cured the second coat. So we'll rinse and repeat, scuff, and we can put on the last coat, which is the pure, which is essentially a clear. That'll be the wear layer, as they call it. So you see, we're not like crazy gentle with the sanding. You know, 240 isn't the finest grit, and we're using a sander, so it's very forgiving. and you can feel, you know, how smooth it is. So now we're on to the last coat. Obviously, we have to change pads because this is covered with gray, and if we start mixing this with the pure, it's not going to work. This is one that we've have going already with pure on it, so take this off and swap them out. They do stick on there pretty good. If you try and just stick a regular Scotch-Brite to your sander, you're going to ruin the pad, so you have to get this hook and loop type that has, you know, the loop side here. Now I'm going to make sure that I get this off. What I can actually do is just cure it onto the gloves, so I don't start to transfer this gray color over to any of the pure. See, we even just keep the stick in there. We've been working on this one for a while, so you can see the color difference. This is, you know, for all intents and purposes, clear. And we really don't need a lot for this last coat. One little application onto the pad, like we've been doing, is probably going to be enough. And you really want to go as thin as possible on the last coat, just until everything is covered with finish. So it's all wiped. You can see the last coat, just one towel, you really end up with not a lot. And this is when you want to take all the, you know, as much time as you need to get it perfect, because it's going to be set in stone, you know, after this. And you could touch this up, so it's, I mean, it's really not a big deal. We do it all the time where we'll put on the last coat and you feel a spot that's a little bit rough. You can just scuff it and fix it. It's nice for us because, you know, we go on an install, it hits the doorway, you drop something on it, we'll bring the finish in the light, and we can just touch it up. It's not like a lacquer where you have to bring it back to the shop, sand the whole thing. It makes it easy. Now we're done, we're all cured. I like to kind of go and just feel, make sure there's nothing that I missed. I mean, it's really smooth. Yeah, no, it feels really good. I have a little bit here that's a little bit rough. So what I can do is literally I just want to feel that it's smooth. I can just take an old rag and wipe it off. So that was a spot that I didn't wipe enough. So there was too much finish there. And now it's smooth. So it's easy. I mean, there's no overlaps. It blends in perfectly.
Okay, well, I'm back in the shop with a little more information and some more confidence to get a good finish on this tabletop. I've already sanded the second coat of finish with 320 sandpaper. Now I'm ready to apply the third and final coat of finish. I don't have the sanders that Jeff and Rob have, so I've hot glued a piece of Scotch-Brite onto the 320 sandpaper that I just used. I'm going to use this to apply the finish. All right, and that's it. The finish is dry, hard to believe, but it's dry and it's super smooth. You can probably hear that, it's just really smooth. And I'm sure that comes down to the finish, but also the way the finish is applied. So time well spent over at Greene Street Joinery. There's nothing like experience with a finish or anything for that matter. And so going over there, getting a few lessons, definitely makes a lot of sense. And that's really the idea behind this video. If you're going to use this finish, hopefully by watching this video will save you a lot of time and help you create a professional finish on your project. Like I said, this video is not sponsored. I don't have an affiliate link with Vesting, but Jeff and Rob do. So if you are going to purchase any vesting products, use the American Craftsman coupon code, and that'll save you 10%. Okay, that's it for now. Also, don't forget, if you do want to build this table, the plans and project video, I'll have links to both of them down in the description below. And I'll see you next time.